Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Multi-Domain Range Scheduling Challenge pitch event brought to you by National Security Innovation Network in partnership with the 56th Range Management Office and the U.S. Army Intelligence Center of Excellence. My name is Angela Austin, and I'm the Challenge Program Manager at NSIN. Today, we gather to address a critical challenge, finding innovative solutions for multi-domain range scheduling and management. With the support of our partners, and a dedicated team of subject matter experts, we've embarked on a mission to identify solutions that can significantly improve the efficiency of planning, communication, and coordination of range activities. These improvements will help meet mission objectives, optimize resource utilization, and minimize conflicts. The finalists presenting today are competing for $75,000 in awards. Before we proceed, let me briefly outline how today's event will unfold. We will begin with remarks, followed by pitch presentations from our 6 finalists. Each company will have 5 minutes to present their solution, followed by a 5-minute Q&A session. You will receive prompts from me when we're nearing the end of that 5-minute period. And then following each pitch and Q&A, we'll have a brief pause for the judges to deliberate. And then we will close with some closing remarks. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the hard work and dedication for all of our participating finalists today. You've all developed innovative solutions to address this critical challenge, and your contributions are invaluable. We're super excited to see what you have to present to us today. And once again, I extend my warmest welcome to all judges, participants, and guests joining us today. Thank you for being part of this important initiative. Your involvement and insights are crucial as we work together to advance our nation's defense capabilities. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Liz McNally. She is our Deputy Director of Commercial Operations at Defense Innovation Unit. Liz, the floor is yours.
I'm so excited to be with you all today. I actually just joined DIU at NSIN just under 2 months ago, and this is my first visit to one of the on-ramp hubs, which is a central pillar and effort that we have under DIU 3.0. Is it working? Okay. And so I'm just excited to be able to be with all of you today as we do that. For those of you who don't know, Defense Innovation Unit's focus, you're good, is on accelerating the adoption of commercial technology and dual-use technology for critical operational challenges. You know, we work closely with mission partners, such as the 2 we have here today, to do that. And a big part of our focus is on finding those innovative commercial solutions, like I said, that are going to be able to address those challenges. And so this prize challenge that we're running today at this on-ramp hub is an exact example of the strategy that we have going forward. So I'm here today, and I'm excited just to participate and watch and learn. You know, I've learned as a leader coming in, it's so critical just to sort of experience on the ground, and I'm eager to get all of your feedback on how this is working, you know, any advice as we continue to improve and do more efforts like this going forward as well. But just thank you all for your participation. I'd also like to send a huge thank you to the leadership of the on-ramp hub, of our NSIN counterparts that have been so critical to today, as well as our partners at the Range Management Office at the U.S. Army Intelligence Center of Excellence for today. So just really excited.
I'm also the test pilot for all of you for microphones, so anyone else, hopefully it'll go more smoothly than that. And if this is the biggest challenge we have today, we're doing well. But again, really delighted to be able to be with all of you, and I'm really looking forward to the pitches and learning from all of you.
Thank you, Liz.
Do I stay here?
And next,
sorry, Angela, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. Next, we will hear from Chaz Buchanan with 56 Range Management Office. Please go ahead.
Well, good morning, everyone. By introduction, I'm Chaz Buchanan again. By title, the Director of the Range Management Office out at Luke Air Force Base. The title is a little bit misleading. Obviously, the range, which is the barium Goldwater range for us, is very big, but it's limited in scope in what we do in that office. We also have the responsibility of scheduling all the 56 fighter wing assigned special use airspace, along with the range. And then, believe it or not, we own a little airfield, Gila Bend, which is part and parcel to all our business and those who use the range itself. And then a very interesting facet, which is just a side note, we're responsible for the land management for over 1 million acres of the range itself. So we get heavily into the environmental business and everything. But really, this is centered on not necessarily the BMGR, but for us, more about the airspace and the resources. When you step back in time, and we're still kind of currently there, and we're quickly trying to morph out of it, historically, bases have always had their assigned airspace and their range. And so, and the coin, backyard range is used quite a bit. So when they step out of the squadron and jump into the jet, they go to that respective airspace, which is right next door, or into their backyard to play on the range. And that's worked very well until today. Historically for us, it's all been about the range and how do we fit all the different users who need access to the range to execute their air-to-ground mission. And the airspace was what it was. Definitely not what it is anymore. And so we were very adept, believe it or not, at cramming 22 squadrons worth of airplanes into the ranges, and that was 20 years ago or more. Think about then versus now. The jets are different, the tactics are different, everything is different. So no longer can we jam 22 squadrons into the same block of airspace and just divvy them up and separate them by altitude and space. Now the tactics, especially with the advent of the F-35 for us, has totally changed the way we look at our business. The NSIN office, folks that go to the Arizona Commander Summit have heard me speak for years about trying to get to kind of a regionalized approach to scheduling versus the backyard stovepiped type scheduling. And that's really where this challenge, I think, in many respects gets its roots. Like I said, the F-35 has totally changed our game for us. And you may think, well, just go get more airspace. It's not as simple as getting more airspace. There's a lot of competing interests for the air out there, especially with the airlines, the corporate traffic, and then you got the military. And the military is put into their own little sections around the state. We have wonderful airspace. But it's becoming more and more challenging to allocate that resource based on the demand. There's a few attributes that we can talk about later that we work with, but nowadays the one attribute we work with is not volume, because they want it all, it's time. So I'm looking forward to hearing all the different pitches and where we can go moving forward. Thank you. Angela, back to you.
Thank you, Chaz. Thank you so much. It's great to hear from you. And next, I would like to introduce Mr. Peter Don, and he is with the U.S. Army Intelligence Center of Excellence. Please go ahead, Pete.
Okay, thanks, Angela. And team, apologize for not being there in person, but I just want to kind of lay flat some of our requirements. From a service perspective in the Army, we talk about seeing ourselves friendly forces in relation to the threat, in relation to the operating environment, within and across the electromagnetic spectrum. Those tenets are showing up within not just the Army, but the Joint Force. And so we want to make sure we capture that and we get after it through test evaluation, training, and experimentation. We are challenged by how we plan and prepare and execute complex, rigorous, realistic test and evaluation, training, and experimentation events. We're seeking a tool and a platform and a capability that allows us to have complete visibility of activities, operations, and actions within Arizona, but as Chaz mentioned, maybe taking a larger regional approach on tying together service-specific bases, ranges, airspace to get after the larger joint all-domain command and control requirements. We're also looking for a way to provide near real-time situational awareness, and it's collaborative. And we want to make sure that we can push and pull data and information freely and get to the point where we're minimizing and reducing staff fratricide at the service level, but also as a joint force. We want to make sure that we have an understanding of the capabilities and limitations of a service-specific range, whether it's a testing range or a training range. Understand the type of targets, the type of training aids and devices, as well as the resources. We want to make sure that that is all brought together in a layered visual information display. It is redundant and resilient based off of new requirements. It's user-friendly. The interface provides a great user experience, and it's all about our sailors, soldiers, airmen, and Marines, as well as our civilians that enable these actions and get to the point where we're not relying upon a team, a squad, or a legion of contractors to operate and maintain the system. It's scalable. That can go from an individual isolated range into more of an aggregated regional training area. It also, I think, needs to be able to operate on our domains, our systems, our networks. So whether it's CAC enabled, we have the right security and encryption. It also needs to account for service-specific programs of record. You know, we have different ways to manage ranges within the Army than Chaz and the Air Force do. So we ought to make sure that, you know, we have something that serves as a bridge or an interface to pull together different programs of record. But again, look forward to the pitches. Congratulations on making the first cut, and I'll turn it back over to Angela.
Thank you. Next, I would like to introduce Drew Trojanowski, and he is part of our Defense Innovation On-Ramp Hubs. Please go ahead.
Again, I have the easiest job. I get to thank everybody for being here. We are, proud delivery partner for DIU. Thank you, Liz, for being here. Glad to have you. First and foremost, again, this is something that's been going on for a while, and I kind of want everybody to take a look around the room. And if you don't know someone in here, find that person, have a conversation with that person, because everybody in this room is pushing a boulder up the same hill that you are, right? And so I just want to contextualize that as well, right, is that we have this Sisyphean effort that's been going on for ranges. Like, how do you get after DoD training? How do you steer the battleship, quote unquote, of being able to get after what it looks like to do better training, how to do enhanced testing, how to do some of those things for what the future fight is going to be. And the future fight is not going to be like anything that we've had before, right? So of this Sisyphean effort, I want to give a specific shout out and thanks to Samantha from NSIN. We have been working at this collectively in our ecosystem for the past 5 years to figure this out. If you recall, back in 2020, there was NDA language thanks to Senator Sinema's office, and Austin is here from Senator Sinema's office, so I also want to shout out. Senator Sinema's office will put something in that led to a study that was led by this ecosystem in collaboration with OUSD PNR to think about what does the future of training look like for non-kinetics. And it ended up becoming like this idea of a federated range complex. There's no one range to rule them all, to what Chaz was saying, this regionalized complex. And OUSD R&E said, of all of the places that we could go do this, it should be in the Southwest. It should be a connection between the Air Force and a connection between the Army. And so, flash forward a couple of years, we had all of the COCOMs out for a multi-day event, having a conversation for what it would look like for us to actually implement what an MDO range or a multi-domain training range of the future is going to look like for us to do non-kinetics. And so, you follow that up with, now we're at a place where here we are. We have this opportunity for us to go, it's complicated to get the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, everyone to jointly schedule range, space, and time together. But maybe this is a solution where we have almost like an open table of range scheduling, so that we're able to actually jointly collaborate, train, build scenarios, and have this immersive environment where we can all connect. And you'll have this link and chain is going to continue, but it's taken us years to get here. So I'm excited to hear from all the teams and excited to see what the solution is going to look like. I also just quickly want to shout out too, you've got a lot of other folks in the room too. You have AFWorks in the room. You have Army Research Lab in the room. You have USAICoE in the room. NSIN folks are in the room. U of A's in the room. ASU's in the room. National Guard's in the room. Everybody's here, right? So have this opportunity, connect with everybody. I'm looking forward to hearing all the pitches. Angela?
Great, thank you, Drew. Well, now we are going to start with our first pitch. The first company presenting will be Bucephalus. Please go ahead and take your place so you can begin your presentation.
Hey everyone, can you hear me? Great. Thank you. Should I just go? I'll just go. Thank you so much. It's a real honor to be here. Super excited. My name is Nick DiGiacomo. I'm the founder and CEO of Bucephalus. I come from a background in originally hardware, doing chip design and all that type of stuff. Switched over to dark side, AI, data science around 10 years while in grad school. Most importantly, worked at Amazon within our supply chain optimization technologies org and a bunch of other fun stuff in there. So why am I here? Well, as old saying goes, amateurs talk strategy, experts talk logistics. So quick about us. Our core capabilities are within the supply chain org, mostly working with retail and companies and entities with large, complex organizations. We do a whole bunch of stuff in terms of optimizing, working across their organizations to make sure they have the right resources at the right place at the right time. We're a Techstars company. We are also a Columbia University portfolio company. We are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant and the premier Gen AI partnership with Amazon. So the generalized problem we're talking about that we've identified is you have all these non-interoperable spreadsheets, a mix of qualitative and quantitative data across all of your different platforms, emails, enterprise resource plan tools, internal systems that you use in database, maybe communication channels such as Mattermost. And none of this is connected. So what this leads to is this highly manual process where all these different functionalities are just go out and built by and maintained by a given team or company. This results in very inefficient use of resources, just subpar outcomes, and a lot of org bloat to fill in the gaps. More specifically to this problem, you guys, I'm really looking to learn more from you and listen to your problems. At Amazon, we have a saying of customer obsession. So I'm looking mostly to have more conversations and really understand the problem. But the average pilot needs to schedule their range before every flight, approximately 4 times a month. And what's most important is maintaining that combat readiness, making sure certain flights and different types of fuel in range or flight refueling, low altitude, nighttime stuff, that everyone's up to par there. But the way people communicate right now, again, very broken and fractured, have to go onto these different systems and everything, which are not in real time. So we're an AI first solution, full stack. What we focus on is automating workflows and giving that mix of insights and action to predict, plan, and execute. We combined a whole bunch of different aspects from predictive analytics, generative AI, simulations, and automation there. We're mobile friendly, and we're using one of the most friendly, best user experiences possible, where no one wants to learn a new system, language. So here in the background, you can see something playing. Someone's saying, hey, show me the map of Fort Huachuca. And we don't have enough time for the whole demo. Please come up to me at the end, saying, hey, show me specifically the air ranges. Let's get something scheduled. Hey, there's a conflict. Let's make sure we get the right people involved and escalate this to resolve it. Essentially, just to quickly explain how it works, we connect across all the raw data and existing systems that any company or organization may have. Again, mix of PDFs, emails, different systems. We connect it together, and we have a semantic data mapping layer which connects and integrates that data across and puts into flow so that it's in the right and optimal place for our AI decision engine to come up with the right recommendations. That's where all the power comes from. And then we have this chat-based interface on top, which allows people to go pose questions, get insights, automate those workflows, and more importantly, to push it into the existing workflows that customers care most about, whether that be email or a existing messaging system. Outside of DoD, as I said, work with complex supply chains. Again, you could see a demo right here. Come see it afterwards. To automate assortments, they could see how much inventory they have on hand, how much to buy, what that recommendation should be, cut that purchase order all automatically, which has
30 seconds
impacts, real world impacts on these organizations' bottom lines. So again, I'm Nick DiGiacomo, founder and CEO. Joining me, our CTO, super seasoned VP of engineering at multiple Series B startups, growing teams from 5 to 75 engineers. Julian, incredible product designer, and Ziggy on sales. We also have extensive background of other people involved in the research side. So that's it. Come see me afterwards for questions or demos. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And next we will get started with the Q&A. So please, judges, feel free to begin asking your questions.
Hey, Nick, this is Pete. Appreciate the presentation. You mentioned that you work with AI, generative AI, machine learning. How do you know if your model is not working? And if it's not working, what do you do?
So we could break that up into different cases. So if you think about like predictive AI and that type of stuff, you'll think about first we do ample back testing and split tests to ensure that the models are performing up to a certain par. And then you have we also put, that's one part of it. Most people think about AI systems like incorrectly in my part, and they think it has a single drop-in part, when really it should be designed as part of a larger system, which includes the rest of the engineering, the user experience, and having some human in the loop aspects on top. So we give you the different suggestions and recommendations. A individual user can actually go and override it or approve it, or it could, if you're sufficiently happy with it, can automate it directly. Does that answer the question?
Yes, somewhat. Again,
Sure.
Ease of use, the interoperability, ensuring that, the software, the app, the program all has access to our data, different data, depending on the service, and, how you can leverage AI to get after that.
Yeah, it's really, to answer that question more completely, we'd have to have a deeper conversation about all the different steps that we go through to make sure that the algorithm is getting the data it needs, that data is properly cleaned and in the right format, and it fits into the existing workflows. And we have a multi-checkpoint checklist and process that we follow with any company or rollout for that system.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, and I may have missed it. Is this housed in the cloud or on hard servers or what?
We are primarily a cloud-based platform, although we have deployed on-prem for certain customers before. Our large language models are also independent. We could swap out to a more in-house one that's more secure, so it's not going to open providers like OpenAI or Mistral or one of those, or Google rather. We've gone through SOC 2 Type 2 audit, which is a data governance security for that our retail and industry customers care about. So that just means all the data is encrypted at rest and in transit and all those considerations. We have when we were thinking about software and engineering design, flexibility, opinionation, but then scale, security, and ease of use are our core pillars.
And I know that, as you build the software, you build the intelligence behind it. I'll call it business rules that you set in. Is it adaptable enough to where, where I said, nowadays the jets want everything. But there are certainly times and different spaces, whether it be Fort Huachuca or somewhere else, you can have some ground play with maybe some frequency issues, and then you can have some airplay on top of that. How adaptable is your system to managing multiple uses?
Yeah, absolutely. What got me so excited to start this company was when you look at the broader changes and just increase in compute and the exponential rise of computing power, but also the advances in generative AI have made it so that we can more quickly adapt business processes and plans to the data layer that we need on both levels in terms of integrating and connect across companies. So we've reduced the time from something that would usually take 12 plus months down to or weeks or even days in some cases, and enables it so that we're able to very quickly and flexibly retrieve information at any level for a customer in a very flexible manner. So again, I'd recommend just coming over to see a demo. It will make it much more clear what I'm talking about. But if you think about a large organization
30
supply chain,
seconds.
they need to see it at every level, plan across multi-echelons of different warehouse availabilities of regions down to specific stores, right? So very similar problems here.
Great, thank you so much. We are at time. That concludes our 5 minutes of Q&A. We're going to go ahead and roll into 2 minutes of deliberations, and we will be back with our next presenter. Please tune in to our next presenter, who is Knowledge-Based Systems. They're going to go ahead and kick off their pitch.
We are from Knowledge-Based Systems. My name is Kannan. He is Bayan. We are here to present our concept solution for a multi-domain range management system. So there are 2 main functions that the multi-domain range management system needs to provide. So the first is a common operating picture. So that kind of informs what's happening in multiple domains, spectrum, airspace, ground, and also the various facilities, instruments, control centers, GSE personnel. So that's the common operating picture view. The other main function is this envisioned solution is geared towards providing excellent support for scheduling and then deconflicting any conflicts within the solution. Our idea is to combine our existing multiple solutions. Currently, each of these solutions is addressing one particular domain. And under this, we are planning to cohesively combine these mature KBSI products. They are TRL 6+, into one integrated system, providing the common operating view. So under the spectrum management, we have listed 2 solutions there. One is S-mode and the other is SETM. The STEAM, which is a system for airspace scheduling and management. That was actually in production use at Edwards Air Force Base from 2003. The asset visualization is handled by RampMap, which stands for Range Asset Management. So moving on. So architecture-wise, we actually see 3 layers. Under the user interface layer, we have the common operating picture view, a scheduling and deconfliction view, and then the same interfaces could then be leveraged to provide connectivity to mobile devices. Then there is a service layer, which is essentially the brains of the system, which talks between the output of the system and provides connectivity to various existing enterprise systems. So we have RIFMIS on the Army side, we have Center Scheduling Enterprise on the Air Force side, integrated frequency deconfliction system. I think that's IFDIS at Edwards. TRMS is the Navy system at China Lake. And there are also other systems that talks about mission management and asset management. And each of these are having multiple attributes which we can actually bring to bear and provide an intelligent way of, if any of the scheduled request is missing key attributes, you could actually identify those things. So let's go into the first common operating picture. So here we see 4 different views. The first on the top left, we see a air-ground visualization. That's actually a SIMDIS. This is from the STEAM that I talked about. So STEAM can actually export data to be presented in the SIMDIS visualizer. On the top right, we have a time frequency chart, mainly dealing with the scheduling of the spectrum. On the bottom left, That is a picture of where your various range assets and instrumentations are, and the location and status are displayed there. And the SERM was our product which implemented the Range Commander Council's RCC 707-14 standard. So there are it is a huge library of metrics that provides what has happened in terms of occupancy, in terms of utilization, efficiency, and then you can also always extend these metrics and visualization. So that's on the common operating picture. The second one, I want to give a little bit more detail about the scheduling and deconfliction. So on the scheduling and deconfliction, this is from
30 seconds.
This is from our S-mode prototype. You have all the schedule items coming in. You have multiple multi-sort capability. There are, as the user selects a particular item, the system basically says, here are all available locations. And then it also identifies a suggested placement. Because it's a multi-criteria optimization, you want to minimize the potential downstream conflicts. At the same time, you want to maximize the leftover spectrum. And not only that, you don't want to have the leftover spectrum to be fragmented. So it is a multi-criteria optimization here. There are other constraints that are coming in place, such as there is a lock for absolute locking or relative timing, so that if you are having a staggered set of flights as a part of a training exercise, you need relative timing to be enforced as you move things on the time axis.
Thank you so much. We are at time, so we're going to turn the floor over to the judges to begin their Q&A.
Excuse me, Pete, this is Chaz. I'll start off. So I see that you're going to leverage, RFMDS and CSE and other existing systems. Am I reading you to where we would still leverage those systems to do the upfront work, and then that feeds into your system?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the solution we are envisioning is actually to augment or complement your existing DoD investments. Obviously, CSE and TRMS and IFDIS has been in place for a very long time. Different service branches are using them. So what we are envisioning is data feeds coming in and providing you a common consolidated view. And then any updates made, we could probably engineer the data being pushed back for the updates or revisions.
Sorry, so as those data feeds come in, does the system rely on, so let's say RIFMIS to update it, an update in RIFMIS to then update your system? So, from an Army perspective, right, RIFMIS runs very slow and is sometimes difficult to use and isn't updated all that often.
So there are, if you want, so the data can come in multiple fashion, right? So in an isolated on-prem implementation, all you have is a set of CSV files you can just drag and drop. So then in that scenario, RIFMIS is providing you the data. But you're looking at it in a consolidated view. Then as you make updates, I think there needs to be some amount of handshake that says, okay, if I'm making updates, I'm going to identify these are the updates I made. These are the attribute values I have changed. So those things, I think if you take advantage of API, you can, we actually envision this, updates being made in this common picture, and then, send the updates back to the system, as long as those are already agreed upon changes that you are allowed to make.
I appreciate the presentation. One question, and it's kind of follow on to Chaz and Adam's questions, about the API, whether it's the app or, the software. Does that require a software license or a specific user account?
So let's say that you are sending data from, for example, CSE. CSE, you could have periodic updates or frequent updates within a day that are coming in. In the past, what we have seen is we have REST API pulling in data from CSE. Usually, the data comes to a staging area, which is then updating, either the S mode or the Steam or Serum. As you make changes, the reverse can also, CSE supports API. So we can use the same API to update, but it depends on what user access role you currently have to make or propagate those changes back.
Okay, that gets to part of it. So if we have, as Adam mentioned, a RIF-MIS account, it's very slow, very deliberate, cumbersome. Do we also need a subsequent account to use your app or your software? And does that account tie back to actual license that we have to pay for?
Can you take that?
We've got 30 seconds left.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, I believe the answer is there may not be a license per se because the technology that we've worked with has been on the SBIR, the SBIR side. So there are certain rights that you guys would already have from a government perspective. However, we can definitely make sure that, the handoff between our application and, your application would work very seamlessly. We've worked with, user accounts, CAC-enabled accounts. We've got several training systems that are deployed that are CAC-enabled. And so as long as you have those permissions, those specific accounts, they should be able to hand off very smoothly between one another.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Thank you so much. That concludes our 5 minutes of questions. We'll move on to our 2 minutes of deliberations. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Ops Lab. Please go ahead and take your place and begin your pitch presentation.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending. I'm Sujeev, co-founder and chief technology officer at Ops Lab. At Ops Lab, we provide decision support systems for squadrons to improve the operational readiness of their pilots. Our flagship product is SkySchedule, a platform that's currently deployed at 56 flying squadrons, and it automates all aspects of scheduling, be it long-range mission planning, be it managing pilot qualifications, quality of life, training, student throughput, and so on. To create and manage these schedules, we are required to coordinate multiple types of resources constantly. And these resources could be pilots, planes, times, maintenance requirements, business rules, constraints, airspace, and so on. While building SkySchedule, we actually encountered airspace inefficiencies when we attended a workshop led by the 56 Wings Range Management Office in 2022. This was in Tucson, Arizona. And we came to know that essentially what's happening is squadrons, they're not always aware of exactly what they want to do with their airspace. And so they end up over-requesting airspaces far ahead, much before the week of flying. And then they end up hoarding it and not utilizing it the way they expect it to. This, in turn, puts a limit on the RMO, where they have limited information on how exactly they're even supposed to make an assignment, right? And then this, in turn, once the assignments are made, this creates a fundamental limit on scheduling. You can only do so much with the airspace that you're given, right? Our solution is to expand the scope of the airspace management module that's already part of SkySchedule. In this module, we are already handling the deconflicting of air ranges from a squadron and a wing perspective. So imagine a use case where just don't assign two missions to the same airspace slot at the same time, that sort of thing, right? So our idea is to expand the scope of this module and handle the use case from the perspective of the range management office as well. And it's all going to be the same platform. The idea is squadrons first log in and actually use the automation of SkySchedule to create long-range mission plans. They can make schedules up to 6 months or even a year in advance. They can use these schedule drafts as a basis to make more accurate airspace requests. The RMO then is able to log into the same system and is able to now get a clearer picture of exactly why the airspaces are requested. And they can make more accurate assignments. Once the assignments are made, currently airspace trading does happen. It's a frequent occurrence, but the way it occurs is by trial and error and through phone calls. Our proposal is to simply build a mobile and web-friendly user interface where everybody can first see what everybody else is doing and how they expect to use airspace. So instead of phone calls, trades can be conducted through this module. And trades, first of all, they can be done instantly and are reflected to everybody else that are seeing it. Right. Now, the final point is this module is already part of SkySchedule, so it inherits all of its benefits. You can access SkySchedule as long as you have a CAC. We are IL5 certified. We handle CoE data today. We'll be IL6 certified by the end of this year. And we're also aware of requirements that change constantly. We are aware of messy integrations, complex data integrations, different types of data integrations, and different needs or different ways in which people want to use the system. This is a problem that we've solved for about 2 to 3 years now. And for us, this is just an extension of our business. And with that, I'll stop for questions.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to the judges. Feel free to start with your questions.
I'll start really quick here. So this seems pretty mature from an air perspective. Can you talk a little bit about the air-to-ground integration and how it fits in with what the Army's doing on the ground in the fight there?
Yes, so the way we would handle it is abstracting it out into a set of data requirements and business rules, right? So to give you an example, the way we do it from a mission perspective is each mission has a set of airspaces, a set of devices or requirements that it has. And putting it very simply, they have different combinations of these requirements that correspondingly have a priority or a schedule quality or something where that differentiates the combinations, right? And so the idea is try to assign the best combination of resources to each mission as much as possible based on the prioritization of the squadron. So the same abstraction actually works here as well. So just like air, we would also handle air to ground as a part of these requirements. And we already know how to group requirements into something that actually adds value to a mission. And we also have a way to say that different sets of requirements add different types of value to a mission. And we are able to coordinate these missions requirements together to come up with the best version of a schedule or assignment or whatever it is that a squadron needs.
Hey, this is Pete. One question for you, and I think I understand your approach to airspace, but how do you kind of capture and visualize the capabilities and limitations, approvals and authorities at these very distinct ranges across Arizona and the Southwest? And by doing so, can you crosswalk that to our training task for our soldiers, airmen, Marines, to get after our warfighting functions and readiness?
Yeah, so I see this as a two-part solution. One is an accurate capturing of the requirements. And the idea is that the data is not as isolated as you would think. It's the same database, and people are having access, like multiple squadrons would have the same access to real-time information about any resource that's being shared, right? So it's a data problem and a visualization problem. The data problem is something that we've already solved. We know exactly how to segregate data when required, but also desegregate data and actually allow access to it as required. Of course, with the CoE data safeguards, with IL5 safeguards, as and wherever it is required, right? But the visualization layer, in terms of exactly what's required, that would be something new that we would add.
Thank you.
I guess I get to ask you a question. I'm following a little bit of what you're doing out at Luke. I know the history there. Can you tell us where you are real fast?
Yes. So at Luke, we've already set up integrations with GTIMs, and we are importing schedules from GTIMs. And what pilots are trying to do is pilots are trying to prioritize the schedule reflow use case, where they're not as interested in long-range mission planning, but rather they want to resolve disruptions today and tomorrow, right? That's the main focus for us. And the idea is that we're trying to get that use case to a place where pilots can already use it on a day-to-day basis, and we are very close there. And as they build that layer of trust and adoption, they will then move over to long-range mission planning. But the idea is that the airspace information has to be a constraint that needs to get addressed as part of scheduled reflows. We have to address deconflicting airspaces, and that we are already handling at Luke.
Yeah, and I assume, airspace to us is just another resource. And everything else that we schedule really is a resource, whether it's a frequency or a threat or a target or whatever. Obviously, that can be built into the model, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
You mentioned AI, and I think it was there, but how does AI incorporate? How do you leveraging AI?
Yeah. So the way we use AI is slightly different. So the decision support actually happens through operations research, where day-to-day decision support, it doesn't happen through AI. And the reason we do not use AI as a tool for this use case is because, first of all, rules change, requirements change, priorities change, right? And it's actually complex for AI to keep up with things that change so constantly. And the other problem with AI is explainability. Like when a pilot comes to us and asks, hey, why did you assign me to this mission tomorrow? We want to be able to give them a clear answer. And the tool that we chose actually allows us to give a very clear answer to that. But AI does have a use case here. And the way we use AI is, one use case is actually forecasting operational readiness. So import past scheduling data, import past data about, for example, disruption frequencies, seasonalities in terms of pilot availability, and so on, and use that to give you metrics like, hey, based on your historical data, the state of your squadron, if you run our system, here is how many students that expect to graduate at the end of the year. And then what you can do is you can actually play what-if analysis with the system. So you can ask, okay, can I borrow 5 more instructors from a different squadron? Can I actually give 309th more airspace, like 80% of the airspace over the next month? How does that actually impact squadron operations, right? In this sort of predictive analysis, this is where we actually use AI. But for day-to-day decision support, we actually use a different toolkit.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjeevi. We are actually at 5 minutes for our Q&A portion. We appreciate your presentation and having you here today. We're going to go ahead and begin our 2 minutes of deliberations for the judges.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Let's shift our focus to People Tech, who is presenting next.
People Tech is excited to present our pitch for meeting the DoD's need for a multi-domain range common operational picture. My name is Brandon Chambers, and I'm a senior product manager here at People Tech. So briefly about People Tech, we are an employee-owned company founded in 2005, and we are headquartered in Huntsville, Alabama. We have just over 600 employees, and we provide a suite of engineering services to diverse federal customers. We also develop and maintain multiple software products using development practices that are assessed at a CMMI level 5. So addressing the challenge of scheduling range resources and activities requires a scalable and adaptable software solution, especially when the mission requires collaboration between DoD branches. Our pitch is to leverage our experience creating complex software systems for the DoD to develop a range common operational picture system that we'll call RangeCop. So at a very high level, our approach to developing RangeCop will be based on a hosted backend that enables RangeCop's suite of capabilities. This backend will include a database layer for storing things like maps and terrain, documentation of SOPs, airspace statuses, etc. Persistent services will ingest external data feeds like live weather data, and will implement modules and services that interface with existing software tools, so RangeCop can utilize their capabilities as well. This architecture can support desktop clients that allow simultaneous users to maintain situational awareness and give them the ability to schedule or activate resources according to their permissions level. For data on the go, this architecture can support web-based apps that are optimized to provide situational awareness on desktops and mobile devices. Next, we'll take a look at three specific software systems PeopleTech is actively building and maintaining that demonstrate our ability to build a system like RangeCop. The first is the Flight Analysis Software Toolkit, or FAST. This is a hosted software system we're developing for the Army Space and Missile Defense Command. It's a modeling and simulation environment for planning flight tests, and it also displays data in real time during test execution. FAST utilizes a microservices architecture to integrate existing software tools and data into a common platform. Some features relevant to this challenge include databases of high-resolution map tiles and imagery data, a connection to the Air Force Weather Wing servers to bring in live data. FAST can also display range boundaries and mil-standard iconography, and it ingests and displays live space, marine, and air traffic data in real time. Finally, FAST is approved to operate on SMDC networks. So we have ample experience developing cybersecure software utilizing the DoD's risk management framework. Next is PeopleTech's marquee software product called Rubix. Rubix is a data analytics platform used by numerous DoD customers, including U.S. and Army Special Operations Commands, Army PO Aviation, and SMDC. Some of its relevant features include customizable dashboards for situational awareness, the ability to ingest and process large volumes of data from disparate data sources, the ability to automate reports, and the ability to ingest data and perform analytics in real time. Rubix modules have been deployed on government cloud services, and we have experience utilizing Microsoft Azure, AWS GovCloud, and Cloud SQL databases. Finally, PeopleTech is developing the Test Management Tool, or TMT, for the Redstone Test Center on Redstone Arsenal here in Huntsville. TMT is a scheduling tool and dashboard designed to enhance the entire RTC testing process. It's built on a data mesh backend to enable improved scaling across domains. Some of its relevant features include configurable dashboards for issue tracking, the ability to manage user access and their privileges, test requirements traceability, and tools for scheduling test resources. Thank you for your time. That concludes our pitch. We welcome the opportunity to continue this discussion with you in the near future.
Now let's open the floor up to the judges with any questions.
Chaz Buchanan here with a question on your TMT module. Does it have any built-in deconfliction if you try to, as you're doing your scheduling and everything else, or is it just show data?
Are we muted? Yeah, you're good. Hi, I'm Brandon Osborne. I'm the software development lead on the TMT. And yes, so when we've not completely gotten to the resource scheduling pieces yet, but when we do have resource scheduling in, that will be one piece of that is like when we're allocating resources for test ranges or test apparatuses, we do have to, build that into our schedule.
Is TMT being scheduled or being created for something there on the ground? You said at Aberdeen. So is it already planned to be in use there for something?
So the TMT is being developed, or it started development for primarily Redstone Test Center at Redstone Arsenal. And what started pretty much as a prototyping contract turned into, hey, we really want this, we want it in production. And we're set for our first go live production date in October. So it will be seeing use by, say, the Florida test team for the Future Long Range Assault Aircraft and interaction with Bell Helicopter to manage the traceability of, say, for example, requirements for their new developmental aircraft, all the way down to individual testing events. So when I mentioned the resource scheduling not being in yet, we have a schedule for when we're building in each of these components, and resource scheduling just hasn't made it to there yet. Right now, they needed bigger support for like component test tracking for their new aircraft.
Hey, just building off of Adam's question, realizing that your capability is supportive of RTC. Do you get a sense from the Army Test and Evaluation Command that there's a larger play for your capability to stitch together the different major range test facility bases?
Yeah, I think they're moving that direction in a lot of different ways, but the primary thing they're trying to do is build out this, they call it the ATEC data mesh on the Azure backbone, so that they can make data coming from basically every center tagged and traceable across all of the centers, so that data is more visible and accessible by each center, and maybe tests don't get reproduced if you know about all of that data.
Angela, I think it's back to you.
Thank you. We'll roll into our 2 minutes of deliberations for the judges and meet back with our next presenter. Thank you. Next up, we have Phaedrus. Please feel free to get up on the podium and begin your presentation.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Joshua Palachek. I go by Grizz. With me today is Alex Ruiz. He's the CEO and founder of Phaedrus. Phaedrus is a veteran-owned small business, 8A, and we support multiple customers at the OUSD level, DARPA, Cyber Command, and really all across industry and academia. Today, we're representing a group of folks with over 300 years of information warfare experience. And today we're presenting to you the Hybrid Optimization for Warfighter Lethality, or HAL, for your consideration. If I can emphasize one thing about HAL, what I really want to bring forward here is that it's an existing prototype on DODIN today. And it's really the manifestation of an entire systems engineering study with 22 core functions and 211 parameters that have been identified in part of a cooperative study with Army TSMO and NIWC Atlantic to look at how do we actually accomplish a federated range enterprise. And so really what HAL brings to the front here is looking at that in a way to visualize, sort, and pair what's already existing throughout the DoD today to enable users to create routine and repeatable training at scale. I'd like to leave you with three main takeaways from today. First is really the genesis of HAL and its application to the warfighter, its ability to tie back into research and experimentation, and where we see HAL going from the future here. I'd like to take you back 15 years-ish. Young me, lieutenant, am deployed to Southwest Asia, and in my very first combat mission. And it's during this mission that it's the very first time that I'm actually able to jam with my weapon system. Moreover, it's the first time I've ever actually talked to any joint entity on a radio. And unfortunately, this is not the right time to learn either of those in the very first instance. But throughout my career as an EWO, I came across cyber, space, intelligence, information warfare, and all other kinds of disciplines, and found that my experience was not unique to EW. And ultimately what this boils down to is that our training model today is really a reflection of warfighters training in the margins of the electromagnetic spectrum. And so how are we going to be able to actually accomplish this when we can't build a super range and we have to be able to piece together because we're not getting any more airspace or anything else? How do we actually address this problem? So what I'd like to present to you is really the concept. And what I'd ask that you take away here is that HAL is much more than software. And it's an entire way of envisioning training and experimentation across multiple domains throughout the competition continuum. And what's really important here to emphasize is the ability to scale events that can go many weeks, many months to represent competition all the way through conflict. To begin, a user sits down and they look at all the different resources that are available across the DoD today. Through dynamic filtration, they can explore different ranges, different sites, and they can look at their equipment status and see what's available, and most importantly, what are the employment considerations, such as EMS approvals? How do we use today with what we already have? Additionally, they're presented with multiple interactive displays that allow them to look at airspace, sea lanes, stick lanes, and multiple different near real-time data feeds to help inform mission planning and analysis. Once they've been able to figure out who they want to work with, they can now figure out what and how it all pairs together. And so what HAL brings here is the ability to uncover latent connections across the physical and digital domains, i.e. LVC. But more importantly, in this scenario, for example, the latent connection here is being brought forward to the user. The user is exploring an operation with Fort Huachuca and Camp Shelby, but HAL was bringing forward to the very front here saying, hey, there's some other really interesting connection points at Plias that you might not know about, so here's how that would all connect together. And from that, they can get a list of assets and inventory, whether it's IoT devices, UAVs, it's anything organic to those ranges and what they have today, to see how they can connect together either through the site's networks, like Gyowar, or through their assets, and how it all pairs and connects together. From here, we go into a scheduling process that brings forward a transparent way to see how research and rapid experimentation can be done. And through this is what's really key here, is that the users, the warfighter, is going to be able to get rapid sets and reps on HAL to be able to figure out the features and the functions that they like best to continue to iterate on this. Additionally, the transparency of these windows brings forward opportunities with research industry, academia, and commercial industry to say, hey, here's a really interesting thing that's going to happen in 2 weeks. You might be able to jump in on that and leverage their spectrum clearance that they've got for that event because it's looking at something similar to what you're already looking at. All of this comes together in a scenario development where each of these assets are paired together in a fictitious scenario and brought forward where users from each individual site can see how their individual capabilities pair together to a larger federated scenario. As we go forward from here, HAL has the ability to continue to look at AI ML integration, scaled data aggregation and analysis, and ultimately getting back to what I brought forward at the beginning here is the inability to do what we need to do as warfighters and be able to see what's brought forward. And this is ultimately redefining the way the DoD approaches training. If I could leave you with one thing today, I'd ask that you just consider that. Oh, I didn't even hear 30 seconds. Okay, that's great.
No, I wanted to let you wrap up, Chris. Thank you. We are at time, so I'm going to open it up to the judges to begin asking their questions. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Adam, Chaz, I'll lead off. I got 2 questions for you, Grizz. First is, you indicated you have a prototype. Is that prototype in support of a joint service requirement? And then the second question is, in terms of the asset pairing, I think what I saw is you can identify other capabilities and opportunities, whether it's a range, airspace, EMS, frequency allocations. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, the way that this was developed, again, was a part of that initial study that was looking at the systems engineering plan for a federated architecture with Army TSMO and NIWC Lance. And that was really the manifestation of the framework and the bedrock of where all of those core functions and parameters come from. And that list will grow as this becomes forward, because as it stands right now, this is simply just a prototype system. But again, it does exist on DODN. And so as we go forward and we look at long-term scaling here, some key things that we're going to want to look at in terms of how this scales forward. As the warfighters get hands on the system, we want to be able to ensure that it not only includes the right features and functions, but we also want to be able to look at a long-term plan to look at how we scale this in an enduring way. So as we consider all of those attributes that you were talking about, Mr. Don, with EMS as an example, that they're presenting the data in the best way possible to the warfighters. But yes, all of those parameters in terms of how those systems work today on the ranges are cataloged and available as part of those initial 211 parameters we identified.
So, Grizz, if I understand correctly, this is a kind of a overarching database that we can reach into and research what's out there as we try to stitch airspace together, or even work in various airspace and ranges, doesn't matter, but all part of one big effort, if you will, kind of like the cheers. Is there any any plan to take this to a real-time, this is a kind of a planning tool, but is there any plan to take it to a real-time scheduling type tool?
It's a great question. So as it stands right now in the current prototype, no. However, that doesn't prohibit it from being part of this going forward. So one of the ways that I would bring that forward is you consider things that are being implemented across the ranges like GIOR in War Room and other features like that. Those can be brought forward to the surface here, just like they are in the mission planning process, to help guide real-time execution and awareness there.
Pete, do you have anything else?
Hey, Chaz, nothing further.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and begin our 2 minutes of deliberations. Thank you so much. And now we will hear from our final pitching company, Systems Engineering.
Just go ahead and go. All right, so
Yes.
Hello everyone, my name is James. I'm here representing Systems Engineering, SEI for short. And as we have talked about for the past 5 presentations, we already know what problem we're trying to solve here. So in short, our solution is to leverage the existing TAC ecosystem and build an AI layer on top of that that will handle scheduling, and then use TAC for all of the UI and user interfaces as well as visualization. So a little bit about SEI. We have plenty of research and development experience. A couple of our examples is that we have an existing relationship with the Office of Naval Research, ONR. We're actually deployed in Dahlgren right now doing some equipment testing with the Marines. We mostly help do unit decision making and that kind of stuff for them. We also just came back from the MRA conference, Mountain Rescue Association conference, and this was part of our phase 2 effort with the Air Force for a SBIR, where we're helping find and locate either downed pilots or lost people in the woods. So there we were showing off our models and experience and tools for how we could actually find those lost people. In terms of leveraging TAC, we do have experience with TAC itself. As part of that same phase 2 SBIR, we've created multiple plugins for it. Here we have an example of our evasive routes plugin. Here, a downed pilot could place their start location and their end location, and then given the land cover, we would create a route for them that best takes them safely to their next location. This app would also take into account cover, concealment, velocity, enemy placements, exclusion zones, and all sorts of things that they may want to place in order to get them to their extraction zone the safest way. TAC is also useful because you can have a whole bunch of different images on it. So this bottom screen shows a little bit more detail of how you can take land cover into account. Now, for our actual solution for this problem, using TAC is good because it is a government owned, and that means that it's perfect for branch interoperability. This means that it can be used across a wide variety of bases, no matter if they're Air Force, Army, Navy, whatever. It's already there. Secondly, it can be accessed from either computers or smart devices and uses virtually the same UI, which means it's easy. And in fact, a lot of service members I know already use TAC, which means that it's one less thing that they have to worry about deployment. It's just throw our plugin in there and you're good to go. That touches on our modularity aspect. Our solution would work as a series of plugins and that connect back to our server. So like I mentioned, you wouldn't have to install any extra stuff in your toolkit if you're out in the field, and range control has all the benefit of being able to use it from PCs nicely. So here we see our general flow that I was trying to talk about. Down here we have the endpoints of either the plugins from the smartphones or the computers. This would relay information back to the servers, which would then send it out to a scheduling bot. If the scheduling bot notices any issues, we could run it through our deconfliction algorithm, and then given all the results, we throw it into a database, and that updates the TAC server for visual aid. Now, you may be asking, what if the deconflictions don't work, or if there are so many issues or an emergency comes up? We also plan on creating a dashboard tool, which would allow range control to manually go in there and change any presets or features or do any planning manually that they needed to do. in order to get that human touch that sometimes a computer can't actually access. Now, we've determined that range scheduling is actually quite similar to a different problem that we've solved called troop-to-task management. This is where you have too many tasks and not enough people to do them, so you need to schedule who's doing what and where. We actually solved this problem for the Marine base at Quantico, and we used a genetic algorithm to do so. So the way that our scheduling bot would be used is that we would take our scheduling algorithm from troop to task and modify it to schedule, well, ranges instead of people. So for our main plan, we plan on doing our interoperability plan within 3 months, and this involves us really getting down to the nitty-gritty, talking to the stakeholders and the experts, knowing exactly what they want from each aspect of our applications and our plugins. From there, we can...
30 seconds.
Thank you. From there, we can continue to creating the UI within 6 months and have it operating in real time within a used server. Along that same time period, we can just simply adapt our algorithm and create our scheduling bot. And then with the remaining time for the 9 months, we can add in any cyber and security that is needed to make the entire system safe and usable. Now, as we see here on the left-hand side, we have a little UI, and this would be like a little field use UI. So our plan is to be able to not just schedule airspace, but schedule anything that you want, from ground control, UAV stuff, UGV stuff, if the range is going hot. And again, this all updates in real time. So if the range goes hot, it goes hot for everyone. Everyone can immediately see it's hot on their phone, and they know to either be careful or not go into that area.
Great, thank you. We are at time. It was so great to hear from you. We are going to turn it over to the judges for their questions now.
Jazz, you want to lead off?
Yes, I will. I got a question on your troop to task module, whatever the scheduling side of it. You know, where you've got so many tasks and not, you know, and people in this case are your resources. And so you divvy out the task and off you guys go. Flip that around a little bit. You know, we've got probably 60 flights that we've got to accommodate in a given day. In a certain amount of airspace and or range or whatever. How does your software handle that kind of inject?
So we would have to modify the algorithm a little bit, but essentially what we do is that we create a genetic algorithm. So we essentially, the way genetic algorithms work is that you have a set of initial capabilities, and then you train a model over time, and then the survival of the fittest, right? The best solutions keep surviving until we create sort of a plan of action that gets better and better with every generation. And then we use that plan of action to generate whatever we actually need to use. So in this case, that plan of action would be used to schedule your flights.
Okay, and as that software learns, our stuff can be pretty dynamic.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can go in and say, okay, I don't need you to do the standard. I need to change the standard. Obviously, it hasn't been built yet, but that is something else we'd be looking for.
Yeah, and then also the nice thing about the software, genetic algorithm as like a learn as you go type of thing that happens is that if we decide to change the parameters for what's good and what's not good, we can do that and then continue to use the old version while we train the new version. And then once the new one is adept towards what we want, we can start phasing that in to do a smooth process.
Okay. All right, and so right now we're using RIFMIS, we're using CSE. You know, everybody's using something different to schedule. Would those systems feed in to your system?
So right now we plan on kind of, instead of using those systems, we would use TAC instead. We can create a feeder system in which people can use those systems into TAC and then feed those into our TAC server, and then that would run into our scheduling bot. Or we could also, and then in conjunction, they could just schedule based off of the TAC plugins themselves. And then I think over time, just the less systems, the better. Simplicity is often better than having to try to do everything. Since TAC is already government owned and already in application in use in a bunch of places, I feel like it would be a good idea to try to merge everything into something that's already being used.
Okay. Over to you, Pete.
Hey, thanks, Chad. I'm going to build off of your question. on scheduling. How does your software detect change? How does a user receive an alert or notification? And then ways to mitigate changes as resources, range availability, or change in mission and change in training tasks?
So software would have to be obviously told that a change is incoming. It can't just randomly detect stuff. But that being said, someone could put in a change request. So like I think the little UI example that I had was for like requesting a range. We could have a separate UI that's for updates to ranges, right? And then you'd put in an update, and then that would change how the scheduling system works in the back and update the UIs accordingly. And then, like I mentioned, we also plan on having the dashboard control tool. So if someone has an emergency and needs to change something immediately, they can go in and do it manually if need be. Does that answer your question?
Okay, well, that's helpful. Again, we're always concerned about, creating hazards and fratricide across the services. So if it has a way to kind of, tag or alert the user that, these assets, these resources at this range, at this time are not optimal, it's going to create a hazard. That would be a helpful capability. So
TAC does have capabilities to do notifications as well. So if there are notifications, we could create a set of like ping notifications that like, hey, the range that you requested under these specifications has changed, and then that pings out to everyone's phone who is subscribed to whatever range request that they put in. So that is a doable feature that we can add in, and this is why we planned on spending at least 3 months talking to exactly the experts who know everything that they want within these features before we go out and build it. We want to have a strong foundation.
30 seconds.
Okay, hey, I'll turn it over to Chaz and Adam.
Just one final. Familiar with TAC, although I don't use it every day. Great for seeing what's going on the ground, where other people are. As we do both air-ground, is there any future of incorporating an air picture into that?
Yeah, so our current plan for that is to have everything beautifully color-coded so that you would know at one altitude it's one color, at another altitude it's reserved for another color, and so on and so on. So with TAC's current capabilities, that would be a simple solution. Moving forward, if TAC decides to add more capabilities, or if we choose to build a 3D plugin for TAC, we could go that route as well.
Thank you. That concludes our Q&A section. We're going to roll into the 2 minutes of deliberations before we wrap things up here with closing remarks. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our pitches. And I'd like to now hand over the stage to Samantha Hiller. She is our regional engagement principal in the local area. Sammy, please feel free to take the floor.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I know I am standing between you and mingling and snacks and break, so I will keep it brief. I just want to thank everybody for being here in person today. Thank all of our companies for your participation. Thank you, Chaz, Lieutenant Colonel Forrest, Pete Don, for all of the work you have done the last few months on this. But obviously, as we know, it's not just been the last few months. How about the last several years? We have been working on really developing this challenge since I arrived in Arizona 5 years ago working for NSIN. This has become a repeat issue and challenge that the Air Force, the Army, pretty much DoD-wide is experiencing. So it's a very important one, and we really look forward to figuring out and working through the integration of the winning team or teams into the Vanguard 2024 exercise this fall in September. And that's really it from me. We're gonna end here, go into break, mingling, and then in about a week or so, we will announce our winning team or teams. And then you will work with myself, you will work with Drew, Angela from our hub team on the development of Vanguard planning and integration. So I also would be remiss if I didn't thank our awesome hub team for all of their work and partnership on this. This is our first challenge that we have run dual challenge, and also one of the first ones we've done in person. So I appreciate all of the hard work that everybody has put into this, and look forward to working with all of you and all of the next steps. So thank you. Angela, back to you.
Thanks, Sammy. Thanks again to everyone. Good point. On-Ramp Hub, you guys are amazing in putting this on with us and helping us out through every step of the way. So we appreciate you. And I just want to point out for those of you who are joining us today through the live stream broadcast, you can go on there and click on the screen, on your screen in front of you, to the tab where you can view the expo hall following this event. So you can still have a chance to interact and speak with some of the companies and see more information on what they have and what they've provided there. So please go ahead and do so. And thanks again, everyone, for a great event, and enjoy the rest of your day.